Hey there, all things MSP crew. Eric Anthony back again from PAX8 Beyond. And we have, of course, the infamous Matt Lee with us today.
That checks out.
Yeah, you're more than famous.
Well, and you and I have spent many time chatting about these things over the years, so I'm always happy when we get to do our kind of reunion, if you will. So
yeah.
This is here we sit right here at Beyond talking about it.
Yeah,
it's
and
awesome.
It's great, because this is my first Beyond.
Awesome.
Believe it or not, this is my first Beyond, actually.
Yeah, fair.
The vendors that I've been working for, just haven't been at PAX8 before,
sure.
and you guys greatly expanded the podcast row this year, which is awesome.
Isn't that awesome? Yeah, feels seen.
There's like 12 podcasts here.
Crazy.
It's
it's
incredible.
Awesome.
So
yours is the best, though. You know what I mean?
Well, I appreciate you saying that, but there are the 12 other guys.
Well, I tried to say it loud enough for them to hear. I tease.
I think they're all at lunch now.
Sure.
But anyway. We're here to talk about, first of all of the great things that are going on at PAX8 Beyond, and of course part of that is the talks that you've been giving and have yet to give this week. So what are some of those?
No, it's awesome. I actually I got charged with running the security track, the reduce risk track, right, in this. And I think I had 7 sessions, and I tried to actually bring other people in, to bring other people's thoughts and opinions and ideas. And it was on a very specific track, but one of them was Lawrence Cruciana and Joy Beeland and Bobby Guerra and Adam, all sitting up there talking about going through their CMMC level 2 assessments and all the things they just didn't think about, like how many hundreds and hundreds of hours they were going to go through of just development. Like, he even talked about how his SLI scores dropped because their revenue dropped because they were spending so many hours of burdened labor just getting ready to try to make something they could sell. Yeah. And I wanted MSPs to take away from that of like, this is hard. 2 years ago is the right time to do it. Now's the next best time, and get started, right? Is that piece. That's followed up by one that I'm doing this afternoon, which is a way to look at other people's demise and use that to strengthen your own security posture.
Okay.
Too many times we look at what somebody's done well as, what a great implementation of that control. You did so well.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, how did that victim die? And what failed in that control for them that I might be able to learn from? And it ties on this survivorship bias conversation, right? We do so much of, I'm doing so well, I must be great. And as opposed to looking at how major modern breaches have occurred.
Right.
And what it comes down to is it's just usually very much the basics. It's the simple basics, and maybe we get into that here in a little bit as we start talking about this.
I love that you're talking about it that way, because there is a survivorship bias. You could have survived just because you were lucky, not because you did anything right.
Or you never noticed it if it's a nation-state player stealing things. I mean, all kinds of situations in that.
But if you look at somebody where the event did happen, they did get through, that is something you can now actually take action on.
Yeah, make some inferences, see how you look differently than them, right? And that kind of thing. And we're doing this during a world where, boy, howdy, it's accelerating. Right? I mean, if you think about some of the things we talked about with managed intelligence providers, agents, agentism, the expansion of LLMs, the escapement of giving access to external things through MCPs, it's nuts how fast this is expanding, right? And while we're also still talking about the basics.
Yeah, and we've matured to a point. I don't think we've fully matured, nor probably will fully mature when it comes to cybersecurity, because it is still a changing landscape and will forever be. Just because of the opportunity for threat actors. Right?
Sure.
And as technology improves, they improve as well. But I think what we're talking about a lot here at PAX8 Beyond is MIP, Managed Intelligence Provider, and how AI is going to change some of the things that MSPs do.
Yeah.
But we can really draw parallels back to what they're already doing.
Yep.
Because, yes, they're doing it with different things, but if you've been an outcome-based MSP, this is just another outcome.
And in some ways, a much larger outcome, right? Because now I might replace an FTE or give new capabilities or do things I could have never have afforded before because of those capabilities. But I love your call of outcome-based, right? If you are outcome-based, this is simply a new set of tools for those outcomes that one must deal with. And ones that have a lot of parallels to the Industrial Revolution, right? Like we had plowed fields for a long time.
Yeah.
We had done jobs to make sure plants grow for a long time, but boy, when a tractor came, it changed everything.
Yeah.
We got 13 kids moved off the farm, moved into the cities. We're able to start being pickle people and making factories and doing other things. Like you have this acceleration, and I'm stealing this or paraphrasing this from a TED Talk. But in this TED Talk, she espoused that humans are two things, universally greedy and universally ingenious. And the point is that when finding yourself in a position where we are either finding new FTE space or new ideas and opportunities, we will always want more. That's why we have air conditioning and cars and roads we can trust and shipping and airplanes and quadcopters and computers. But we're now in this place where, to your point, I think this is a real inflection point, not just on the maturity, but also on what it takes to overcome commoditization.
Right.
If you think about, running an Exchange server in 2022, 2020, 2018, you had a lot of work to do. You had to make sure it was on 10K spinning disks, to make sure that the Exchange database had its own speed and capabilities. You had enough cache. You had to have different volumes for each of these different things. For log databases, you had to run that in virtualization platforms and back it up. You had to update it. You had to have external NATs, or network address translation paths, into the server. You had to manage the public DNS. Now, you literally point it at Microsoft. Yeah. And you have mail, and you pay X dollars a month, right? And so when you think about that, that's a commoditization. When I open up my phone and fire up Angry Birds, 100 out of 100 times Angry Birds launches, and 100 out of 100 times I don't call somebody and go, hey, my Angry Birds ain't quite working. It's SaaS. It's built into an operating system that's manageable. I say all that to say, that's a pretty rapid commoditization of our value statement. The white glove treatment, I'll make it just work. Well, yeah, go.
Going from having to build your own Exchange server to just logging in to Microsoft 365, that is a revolution in itself, even though we may not have even looked at it that way.
And I don't want to demonetize the knowledge and the things you have to know to be successful, but I will say they're more normalized. I don't have all these variables like server 2003, 8, 8R2, 12, 12R2, 16, 19, force function 03, 8, 8R2, 12. I don't have any of that. Right. None of that. I'm able to literally just deal with Graph API.
Yep.
So I say all that to say what that means is that up till now, robotic process automation, APIs, application programming interfaces and extensibilities, they've had limiting factors of, I have to be smart enough to be able to plan through the process enough to make these things happen the way I want. And I have to keep it up to date. I have to make sure if it changes. When you start going down an agentic world, a lot of those things become part of the logic you're asking the agents to solve.
Right.
And so when you get into that space, I think you'll see more and more use cases where someone's being asked to help build something that does something in a predictable way. Now, we won't tackle efficacy yet. Let's just say if everything was perfect and they're good and efficacious.
We're talking about the potential.
But the potential. Now I'm imagining that I might want to have and I'm going to use this from a real world case that I just talked to somebody about. I won't say their name. But this company wanted someone to come in and connect into their Salesforce, connect into their financial trading platform on a read-only basis, so that when a client walked in, facial recognition could walk with you and I are working, and you're bringing me into this meeting room. It'll know it's me. It'll pull up the last 5 notes for you of what we talked about. It'll send me stuff about my riskiest investments and the things and what's interesting is I asked that MSP, do you ever plan on maintaining that for them? He's like, absolutely. Are you going to have to charge them? I'll figure it out. Yeah, 100%. It's part of my value statement. Would you ever resell that? Yeah. Why would I want to do the work again? I've built something cool. It does something neat with these modalities. So all of those very normalizing effects of like the APIs and SaaS platforms and adoption of identity means that I can drop in these agents and they'll do the same thing programmatically from multiple companies.
Right.
That means that you could maybe have a marketplace of knowledge and intellectual property you're creating on top of other intellectual property.
And that's the conversation I had with Chance Weaver yesterday, was just like if they went out and built a SaaS platform product, they are creating IP that is valuable and can be resold many times.
And they'll probably resell it many times to their own client base, but what they haven't thought about is, can I resell it to others? Would my value be valuable to someone else in that way? And I don't know that that's all sorted, but I will say that's what great power is. I think this is going to be great power. It's going to allow us to have clock cycles. When you think about clock cycles, everything in life is a trade-off of time. I can make more money, I can do so many other things, but I can't make more time. And so when you think about the opportunity cost of, let's say, fixing tech debt in a company, or making something that you hadn't done before, like maybe looking at and managing assets in a more meaningful way. Instead of me having to take clock cycles from someone else, we're kind of inventing clock cycles. They're now CPU cycles. Again, like really, not human brain cycles, but CPU cycles. Imagine you're looking to see, okay, I have this asset list and this asset list. Agent, you're great at determining which assets are really an asset and which ones are a new repeatment of that name. Any ones you find, please send them as a ticket into my ticket system. Now you have an MCP that allows you to read it from here, an MCP that allows you to make the ticket. You now have the ability to give something the ability to do very common functions you want done. Now, back to efficacy. challenge we face is that we're still in a point today where hallucinations are absolutely true.
Yep.
Right? They are absolutely capable. And a lot of people will use that to say this shouldn't happen. We're not going to be able to use these. I don't think that way. I think it might limit the functions we can do with them. We might have to deal with things that are okay with 85% efficacy and that I'm saving 85% of the work.
Which in a lot of cases, 85% is a great number.
Absolutely. And even if it's 70 or 92, I think the point is that's still free clock cycles. And I don't mean free, I just mean clock cycles that you can build IP in, that now you don't have to wait on some baby to be born, fed for 20 years, right? Put through school, made smarter for you to have workforce.
Yep.
You can create workforce, right? And it's just impressive of where we are today.
And I think that is kind of where this revolution is going to center around, is the ability to just multiply workforce much quicker than we've ever been.
Yeah.
Now,
100%. Assistively first, probably, and autonomously long term.
Right. And that comes down to that efficacy, right?
Yeah.
And it's efficacy and risk.
And context. There's some gaps in context too. But to your point, risk. Let's talk about that, right? Like, now you have, and I'm doing a talk at Wild West Hack and Fest called Giving Swords to Our AI Overlords, right? It's talking about that bad decisions can be made, and now bad decisions can be made even faster.
Right.
Right? But this is almost an argument for MIP and an agentic marketplace, because now you can find stuff that people have made that works, and start having some degree of at least normalcy on the ways we're doing something, and so that systemically it fails or systemically it succeeds. I'm not saying that's a perfect answer, it just means I think we have so many repeatable things that there can be some really good intellectual property that is repeatable, that gets the most value use cases out of these things.
And I think the value of the IP goes up as efficacy goes up and risk comes down.
Yeah, I mean, yes, Madden. Exactly right. Yeah, I think so. I think the other things to cover kind of in this too is just like change is a constant. And sometimes change is a constant that seems to be compressed. This might be one of those where the time has been compressed by the very things we just talked about, and the speed of play. And I'll tell you this in one way. There was a new SaaS company I met with back at Right of Boom, so back February, whatever that was, and they told me about all the things they were doing with agents. It was neat. They were selling an agent concept to companies. And they're go-to-market strategy, all those things. And I met with them again at RSA, so 3 months later. They had already had revenue. I mean, they were already bringing in revenue on MCP, or minimum viable product, MVP. They changed the whole model. By RSA, they said, no, that's not going to work. We killed the revenue. We fired. We just switched to another thing. We're already selling revenue. We're already back up. That speed was years, and years of venture capital and pre-revenue venture capital. Imagine what that does to us.
Yeah.
But now imagine what that does to us if they're not doing the security basics, and they're not able to do that, and they're now vibe coding their way to success. And so, like, I would just say we have this mix of things that are going to play out. If I was doing this as an MSP, I would say, understand change is going to happen, and know that you're either in or self-selectively not going to be part of that movement in capitalism. And we've not seen capitalism kick away something that gives you 10x capabilities. We just haven't. The Industrial Revolution, there's a lot of armless people in the Industrial Revolution, but at the end of the day, I have air conditioning, we have cars that we can trust, we can get commerce between states, I can fly and see my grandma. All of those things are reality because of somebody's missing arm.
Yeah.
And I feel like, in this case, those early adopters might want to consider that higher risk and think about it in that way and do things that are less risky. Look at the way we've implemented MCP at PAX8. It's read-only. Does that mean there's no risk? No. There's still risk in read-only. But I can't write stuff. I can't do things. I can't change things, right, to that extent.
So you started at a point where you are considering the risk, though, and
100%.
doing everything you can to limit it to see what happens without impact.
Yep.
Before you will give it the chance to have impact.
And that's the drive of business. That's where I think healthy capitalism exists, is saying, how do we take advantage of these things moving forward, but make sure we understand our risks and the things we're in and the things we're getting ourselves into.
Well, and I think that's why capitalism works so well.
Big fan.
Is because, there's a certain amount of risk that gets rewarded.
Yep.
But it also self-controls.
until it doesn't.
Because the risk can be too bad to be tolerated. And I think that's what gives it the self-control that has made it succeed in places where other things fail.
And at a personal mission, but also at a PAX8 mission, one of the things that I would love to tackle on this, if you'll allow me, is we think that there's a room for people to be empowering and to be empowered and to help others be empowered. Imagine something where we know that you may not be where you need to be. You may not know all these things. You may not have a risk-based methodology. You may not be following a framework. You may not have approached this for your own selves. We want to teach you to do it for you first.
Right.
Right? After we teach the MSP to do it for them, We want to teach them how to sell it and put it in their packages and make sure that they can support it and they're not going to lose their business over poor decisions or being sued out of existence or things in that nature. And then after that, we want to help them actually accelerate those growths. And so that's our guided growth program that we're working on. There's a whole bunch of teams here. If anybody is seeing this afterwards, please look up guided growth. It's going to be a great way for us to try to take you down that journey no matter what point you happen to start on.
And that was one of the things that I really loved, because we got to sit in on the press briefing before the show. And the guided growth is really, I think, one of the most important things any vendor can do.
Yeah, helping people have food on the table.
Exactly, is help the people that they're trying to get to use their products so that they use them the right way and the best way to be as profitable as they can.
That's it. And I think there's always a balance of profit and outcomes and costs and business opportunities and all the things. We're just trying to help people dance that the right way.
And I think the vendors that do that are going to be the vendors that succeed. And I think that's why PAX8 has had some of the success that it has.
That's why I'm betting my paycheck on being here.
I know you are. And I think it's a great bet.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me, as always, brother.
Yeah,
I always
anytime.
get to, this is, like I said, this is our one moment to catch up and really get some content made, so thanks for having me.
Well, sometimes we get to do it, when you just are randomly in Raleigh.
That just happened a non-zero number of times, we just set up kit in the middle of the lobby. It was wonderful. I remember that one. I think we didn't record on one of the mics or something. It was like, no! We got it, though. Resiliency.
Yeah.
There's something to be learned in the MSP world there, I think. I think there's a corollary, so
It's always great.
Appreciate you.